Boom. Good evening, everybody. Today is Tuesday, April 13th, 2021, and you are listening or watching to another edition of Forward Maryland. I'm Bill Woodcock.
And I'm Jason Booms. Our producer is just messing us up today with all kinds of drops.
That producer's a bum. We need to fire that person.
Nice timing.
Speaking of which, Jason, I have my new USB microphone. How do I sound?
It's crystal clear, really.
It truly is. It's like I'm in the room.
I could hear it if I were in Kensington.
Oh, that is most excellent. You know, I don't want to sound like my head is in a bucket underwater, which is how another notorious podcaster described our sound. And of course, I believe that individual now wishes his head were in a bucket underwater.
He should be so lucky.
Oh, indeed he should. But he loves to take his wife to the Greenbrier though, because they're just so in love. There's nothing quite like love, Jason. Do you agree?
Oh, it's in the air. It's springtime.
It is. It is. And as it is springtime, also in the air is the Columbia Council elections, the CA board elections. And we have decided in this intrepid podcast to look with some detail into the race in the Wilde Lake Village, which is hotly contested between three candidates. And we are bringing one of those candidates to you this evening, and his name is Bill Santos. Bill, welcome to Forward Maryland.
Bill.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for having me on.
So, Bill, tell us a little bit about yourself. And for those of us watching or listening who are not in Columbia, tell us a little bit about what the Columbia Council, the CA board is.
Oh, okay. Let me get a little bit about myself out of the way. That'll probably be a good start here. My name is Bill Santos, William Santos on the ballot. I have been in Columbia since 1972. My parents moved here early in the 70s here, and I grew up here. My wife and I, when we got married, decided to move to Wilde Lake. She's also a lifetime Columbia resident. And we moved in 2000 to Wilde Lake, which is a section of Columbia, the first village, I guess the original village in Columbia, Maryland. I've lived here for about 20 years. And since I've been here in Wilde Lake, I have made a conscious effort to give back to the community. Growing up in this town, I think that this community has given a lot to me and made me a better person. So when we put down roots, I started volunteering and doing plenty of work in the neighborhood. Just a short run, I was on the Wilde Lake Village Board, which is the hyper-local homeowners association, for 9 years. And it's more than a homeowners association. They do a lot of good work in the community, a lot of policies, a lot of advocacy. It's a great local entity. So I spent 9 years on that board. I've been on the Howard County Planning Board in Howard County, the Howard County Recreation and Parks Board, the local Running Brook Elementary School in my part of Wilde Lake. I was vice president of the PTA there. I've got like a ton of other things. The only other thing I'd like to mention is, because I'm kind of personally proud of it, for the past 6 years, I've been one of the managers of the Wilde Lake Watercats neighborhood swim team. And swimming is a passion of mine. It's a love, lifelong love. And I've really liked to give back to the community, see the kids learn how to swim, become stronger swimmers, and learn the value of competition. It's a unique opportunity because a lot of sports in Howard County are team sports. In the swimming realm, it's you're really just swimming against yourself. You're swimming against other people in the pool, but you're always just trying to better your time from last week. So I think it really does give kids some perspective about what true competition is, and that's a fun thing to do. So that's kind of my background. Let's see. The Columbia Association, I'm running for the position Columbia Council Representative. which will, once elected, I will become part of the Columbia Association Board of Directors, which would be the body that governs the Columbia Association. There have been a lot of numbers put out lately. I believe that they are currently a $50 million organization. Their money comes from a combination of assessments on local properties, much like a traditional homeowners association. About half their money comes in through there, and the other half largely comes through memberships that they sell to various amenities in the area: swimming pools, fitness clubs, tennis facilities, things like that. The Columbia Association has kind of many hats. It is classified as a 501c4 organization, a social welfare organization. And they were social welfare long before social welfare was cool. So they have a fairly wide mandate, but it has been mostly focused on a couple of things. One of the major things they do is maintain open space within the city of Columbia. Columbia has, I believe, approximately 3,500 acres of open space. This is what you would call managed landscapes, green areas, stream valleys, managed woodlands, and they ensure that those are kept in great shape. They have over 100 miles of bicycle and pedestrian paths that they maintain throughout those open spaces. They also have, as I alluded to earlier, a sports and fitness division that is the fitness clubs, the tennis clubs, the swimming pools, and they provide those amenities for a fee. They have a community services division, which is relatively small from a budgetary standpoint, but I think it's super important. One of the two big things that are in community services are the summer camps that CA provides. Traditionally, there are dozens of camps that they provide for youth during the summer, and it's a great place for kids to grow and learn while they're not in school. One of the best camps they have is the Wilde Lake Nature Camp, which was, I believe, one of the original camps that was founded here in Columbia. And it's a rite of passage for most of the kids that live in this area. It's a fantastic 2-week experience. And then the other component of community services is the before and after care service that they provide at the local elementary schools within Columbia. And it is a service that is it is fee-based, but it provides the ability of parents to drop their kids off before school starts and pick them up after school ends. And it's a managed care kind of thing at the schools where the kids can get dropped off as early as 7 o'clock in the morning and then picked up as late as 5 o'clock at night for those who work. And I count myself as one of them. I had my kids in that. My daughter got out of that just about 18 months ago. Just a couple of, during the pandemic, she obviously didn't do any of that, but about 18 months ago, she was in that program. That kind of gives you a broad view of the Columbia Association. I hope that helps folks from outside of the city to give some flavor as to what this position I'm looking to run for is. And if you guys have anything to add, I would welcome that too.
So Columbia, for the uninitiated, is made up of 10 villages, and each village has a member on the CA Board of Directors. And so you're running, of course, to represent your village, Wilde Lake. Why are you running? And what are you going to do if you get elected to this office?
Well, why I'm running is because I care about this neighborhood. I care about this village, and I care about Columbia. The Columbia Association has been around forever. And like I said, I've been busy volunteering in many different capacities. An opportunity here came up. One of our longtime residents, Nancy McCord, decided to step down from the CA board, which has provided this open seat for which 3 of us are running. So when the opportunity came, I thought that this would be a good time to apply my collected experience and knowledge to help make Columbia a better place to live and a more inclusive place to live. So that's pretty much the quick as to why I'm doing it. The deeper part is that given my prior experience on the village boards, my ability or my necessity to review CA budgets prior to, I've got a pretty good idea of how their budget operation works. the swimming pool connection with being a swim team manager, having been a lifeguard, actually working for the Columbia Association in the 1980s, and being on the Columbia Aquatics Advisory Committee. I have a pretty deep introspective of what the pools are, what they require, and where I think they should go in the future. Also, I do tend to do a lot of training at the fitness facilities, so I'm in those buildings quite a lot. So I have a lot of just firsthand knowledge as to a lot of those things are going on. Like I said, my kids have been in the camps, the before and after care. I am a heavy user of this system, and I think that my insights, my experience that I would bring would be helpful in moving those forward. So I think that I provide a unique set of skills that will help this be a better, I guess, corporation, a better association, a better manager of the neighborhood.
Mm-hmm. So one more question, and then I will kick it over to Jason. And I like the I like the term unique set of skills. Quite Liam Neeson. I like it. Has legs. But where do you see that there's a lot of discussion in Columbia right now about how it is relevant and responsive to people who are not like the three of us, 40 something, 50 something year old white men. How do you see your experience and expertise in being able to respond to that need?
Well, there's a couple of things here. This is a top to bottom kind of issue here, right? An open seat did come up this year. In Wilde Lake, we have elections every year. There's the potential to have a competitive election every single year in Wilde Lake. An open seat came open here, and the people that stepped up and said, I want to help, all are three white people. And that's not diverse. What I would say is that moving forward, we need to make sure that the Columbia Association Board of Directors is more inclusive. It's currently an all-white board, and I don't think that is intentional. I think that voters in villages voted for the people who decided to run. What we need to do is we need to start removing some barriers. We need to understand that in Columbia, some of the hardest barriers that need to be removed have been put here by ourselves. There are some barriers that people might say, well, we don't have enough communication, we don't have enough outreach. But I think some of the things that we've developed here over the years of trying to be an inclusive community, we may have some blind spots. We need to look at this a little more introspectively to get that to work. Absent that, I can tell you that I'm running, and if you're concerned about that, understand that that'll be part of my agenda as far as being a CA board member, because I think that we need to be out there talking to people in the community. That's one of my biggest things. Is I think that having lived in this town for a very long time, it used to be that the Columbia Association would say, hey, we're going to have a meeting and we're going to talk about city planning, or we're going to talk about equality, or we're going to talk about whatever the particular concern in the town was, and you get hundreds of people to show up at Slayton House, the Spears Center, or somewhere to come and talk and listen and interact with each other. And it would be people, old people, young people, people of all races, all religions. These days, I see the Columbia Association says, hey, we're going to have an important meeting and we're going to discuss whatever it is, maybe the Symphony of Lights, we're going to talk about something. And a few dozen people show up. And oftentimes it's the same that show up time and time again. There's a relevancy that CA needs to get back to. And I think that is getting back out into the neighborhoods and talking to individual groups. And that's PTAs, that's scouting organizations, but that's also getting involved with people like the different ethnic organizations that are out there, and get them involved. One of the things that I want to advocate for on the CA board is that when it comes time for the budget, excuse me, it's pollen time. When it comes time for the budget, I want to make sure that we schedule a specific night so that folks from, say, like the Council of Elders or the African American Coalition of Howard County would be invited to speak on the budget as it is from the Columbia Association, and give them a specific voice to be able to start getting that dialogue started. And you know, the budget is the key. I view budgets as policy documents, and we need to get their input on the budget if we don't have a good representation of the entire community on the board itself. So I think that outreach is going to be important. Those are kind of things I see. And then something else that I think is equally important, but it is a little more programming wise. It's a little different, a little bit out of reach of the board, but I think they ought to set this policy, is that when we're talking about senior level line positions, like the manager of the athletic club, the manager of a swimming pool, the senior supervisor at a camp, the senior supervisor at before and after care. I believe that every effort should be made to make sure that a minority position or a minority figure is in those positions as often as possible, because I think it gives us two benefits. Number one is if we have any children or young adults that are interacting with that person, they understand that that person is in a position of authority at that particular time, and they have somebody to look up to. The other side of it is that if we get somebody who's 17, 19, 22 years old, who is in this line position and also happens to be African American or Asian or something like that, then they have a supervisory experience that they bring forward into the rest of their lives, and they will continue to pursue supervisory experiences. So I think that those are two things that I think are really critical, that we can set a policy at CA to make sure that we have a generation of kids that want to be leaders, and those leaders are as diverse as the population itself. So that's just a couple of things. I hope I haven't gone too long on this.
That's just a few. That's just a few. That's good. Thank you. Jason, over to you.
Oh, thanks, Bill. Bill, a couple questions for you. Similar structure, but they may yield different answers. I don't know. Overall, and just again, establishing that I too am a Wilde Lake resident, and I had the opportunity as well as you, though we didn't overlap, to also serve on the village board as well. As far as the direction in which Wilde Lake is headed, simple survey question: right direction, wrong track, and why?
I think Wilde Lake is doing okay. We, having served on the village board just 2 years ago, I served a one-year term. And speaking of diversity, it was pretty amazing. My prior service on the village board in the like earlier, it was almost all white, I have to say. But the last time I served 2 years ago, I was the only white guy on the board, which was interesting. Everybody else had some other different experience and background that they brought to the table. And it was great conversation. It was great policy making. I think the leadership is there. You got a very steady hand in Kevin McAlilly, who's running the Village Association there as chair of the board. I think he's doing great. And Kristen Schulder, who is the manager, does a great job with day-to-day ops. Beyond that, a couple aspects, couple of different lenses when you're discussing the village. I think that as far as the village center is concerned, I think that the village center is a success on many levels. I played a big part in getting the village center redeveloped. And I think that one of the things that I see is I see people walking in the village center at night alone through the village center. And that says a lot about public safety. That says a lot about confidence. That says a lot about shops are open in the evening hours. So I think that the leasing out there is pretty good. I think there's still office space available, but regrettably during the pandemic, we had a restaurant go out of business there, the Melting Pot, but we still have a lot of businesses that are hanging on and doing pretty good. So I'm pretty happy with what's going on with the Village Center and how it maintains its liveliness even in these challenging times. actual village itself, I think that we look pretty good. I will tell you that the roads in Faulkner Ridge need to be looked at. That is not a Columbia Association concern, but that is a county concern. They're going to be replacing a lot of water pipe along Faulkner Ridge Circle there. And when they get finished with that, that needs a complete repaving because that road is in pretty bad shape. But the infrastructure looks good. I think that the Columbia Association in the past year has done a really good job of maintaining the open spaces, particularly around, we have a lake in Wilde Lake, and they've done a good job of keeping that in good shape. I know that during the pandemic, a lot of people walked around that lake, and there's been a lot of, the trash is built up a lot, and they've really kept after that to make sure that if a can is full, it gets replaced out. They're keeping things going there. There's a stream restoration going on, which is critical, given the problems that they had in Ellicott City. We have not had flooding of that magnitude in our area, but Wilde Lake does represent a low point on the west side of Columbia, and to see the stream restoration is a good thing. It'll help preserve that open space far into the future. One small thing, one criticism I have is that in Faulkner Ridge, we did have one of our playgrounds removed fairly surreptitiously. That's one of my SAT words that I had to work with my son with. I want to see that replaced as soon as possible. I have a fairly big heart for playgrounds and making sure that municipal play areas are maintained for everybody to use. I don't think that it should just be the private venue of people's single family home backyards. There should be some public amenity there. Let's see. The schools, I think doing all right. This has been a challenging year. We're going to see how it goes next year when we get back to school in the fall and they start doing standardized testing again. I know that it has been difficult, but I have seen firsthand at the high school and middle school level, parents and students banding together, reaching out over Zoom and things like this, kind of trying to preserve and maintain some semblance of community. The Wilde Lake Prom is coming up very shortly, so that's a good sign. Obviously safe and socially distant. I'm sure that I don't have all the rules with me on my fingertips, but it's good that that kind of event is coming back. So I think that those are a lot of the aspects in Wilde Lake, and taken together, we look good. I'm proud of this village, and I'm proud of the people that work hard to keep it in good standing.
Then related question. Well, actually, and since the Wilde Lake Village Board and the representative from Wilde Lake to the CA Board, obviously, different entities, but nonetheless similar interests and things you have to look out for. But in terms of, again, same question, right direction, wrong track. What do you think about the CA Board? And if you want to tie that into any responses specifically about the full restoration of services, that'd be great to hear your perspective on that too.
Okay, let me first start here. I think the CA Board, as I said, has to be relevant again, and we need to get that board out in front of people more often so that they are coming to the CA Board and restarting that dialogue. Quick revisit of that note. That being said, there are three particular things that I'm concerned with the CA Board. One was a study that they did, came out about 18 months ago on the neighborhood centers. And for folks who are not from Columbia, most Columbia villages are made up of a grouping of neighborhoods. And most of those neighborhoods, in particularly the older parts of town, there is a neighborhood center next to the neighborhood pool. It is quite a unique system. And I think that each of those neighborhood centers holds value. I know that there are a lot of people locally that use those neighborhood centers for nurseries and co-ops and daycare when they go off to work. So for preschool kids, typically. The Columbia Association had put forward a paper regarding the condition of those centers, Many of them needed to be upgraded for being consistent with code and sprinklers and plumbing and electrical and things like that. And there was a lot of work that needs to be done. And one of the suggestions was, well, maybe we should close some of these neighborhood centers. And I think that was the first sign that I heard of a disinvestment in the neighborhood system. So I want to stand firm on the neighborhood centers. As I also stated earlier, the playgrounds are what we call in Columbia tot lots. Tot lots get asked about as far as, well, maybe we don't need as many. I have a program, having done the research, I have a program that I would like to institute. There are two standards that exist for playgrounds and young children. One was authored by the CDC, said that children should be no more than a half-mile walk from any playground. And I think we can do an easy analysis, take a look at each playground, find out how many homes can be served within a half-mile radius. And we can figure out if there are 3 tot lots in that half-mile radius, we would probably look at some cost savings there. If there are no tot lots, we may have to build one. Mm-hmm. Now, the second source or standard was the New York City put together a 30-year planning document called Plan NYC. And in that, they said no kid should have to walk more than 10 minutes to get to a playground, which I think is about the same as a half-mile. The other thing that I found out when doing the analysis here is that there are many places within Columbia, not necessarily Wilde Lake. Wilde Lake does a pretty good job, but there are places in Columbia, for instance, in Dorsey Search, another Columbia village, where in the single family home section, there are 4 tot lots that kids can walk to. Where the townhouses and condominiums are, there's 1. Mm-hmm. And half the townhouses and condos are geographically remote from that tot lot. So the kids would have to walk much further than 10 minutes or a half mile to get to it. So we need to do another analysis here and say, are we serving all of our constituents equally? This gets back to the equality discussion we had earlier, Bill. This is another thing where you say, hey, apartments, those kids need to have a playground too. This can't be just a single family home kind of amenity. We need to make sure that there's equal access for people in all housing types so that their kids can play. And I'm willing to talk to everybody about that. But once again, tot lots being removed, neighborhood centers being removed. Last was, of course, swimming pools. We have 23 swimming pools in Columbia.
Very huge in Columbia, Maryland. We cannot understate the importance of this community.
No, swimming is a way of life. And swim team is very much a way of life.
It is a very big deal in Columbia. Now, I will tell you that in the year 2002, I believe they had a consultant come in to assess the situation with the pools in Columbia and what we need to do to make pools better. And they were absolutely like, your attendance for pools is off the charts. Like, this is unusually high attendance. But that's what we do in Columbia. It's one of our things. But as the years have gone on, there has been discussion of closing some of those pools. 2 of those pools that often get mentioned are in Wilde Lake. And I think that is something that we need to stop in its tracks. Taken together, pools, playgrounds, and neighborhood centers, the Columbia Association has shown a tendency for disinvestment in villages. That is a long way to get back to your first question there. I apologize, Jason. So that's where I see the CA board right now. But like I said, they do great things with keeping the open space maintained too. It is a mixed bag. But if I were to find a criticism, that's where I am concerned, and that's where my concern lies.
And I will readily admit, having lived next to the Faulkner Ridge pool for several years, I definitely miss the whistles that come with the meets. And
yeah,
it does seem as though when they made their decisions to close down the pools, it did seem as though Wilde Lake was a rather hard hit, although my understanding is, geographically speaking, there are pools accessible in other areas, but for folks that may not have the transportation options that some do, it could indeed be tedious and quite an inconvenience going to some of their villages.
Well, let me just expand on that for just a moment for you, Jason. Wilde Lake, all the pools were closed last summer. That was equal and equally harsh, I think. But they made that decision and they communicated it poorly. But this year they made a decision to open 15 pools, and their mandate was we need to have a pool open in every village, and we need to have pools open to allow the swim team season to progress. That was their next thing. That's the next largest block of swimmers that we're aware of. Here in Wilde Lake, we have one pool that will be open this summer. That is what the plan from the Columbia Association is. But in our neighboring village, Harper's Choice, all 3 of their pools are going to be open this summer. So I think that if I were on the CA board, I would have fought for all the pools to be open. I don't know if I would have won that fight, but if we were going to discuss which pools were going to be open, I think that it'd be a different 15 pools that we would be looking at. No harm to the people of Harper's Choice, but I can't believe that all the pools in one village are open and some are left with just one, and the lack of walkability is a concern.
And I do have one more question before I kick it back to Bill. And obviously, you've been covering these issues for some time. When I first moved to Columbia in 2011, yours was one of the first blogs I started reading to get a handle on what was going on with this very, very interesting community that I moved to. So 2 questions. Why did you start writing the blog, and why did you stop?
Well, we're going way back on this one here.
It seems like
so
yesterday.
it's what does this have to do about the Columbia Board of Directors? No, I'd be happy to answer the question. It's let's see, I started the Columbia Compass blog mostly because it was a new way to communicate with everybody in the neighborhood. And I was not the only one. There were several at the time. We had Bill had one. We had, Dennis Lane, famously here in Columbia, had a blog, which was fantastic. Ian Kennedy, who wrote under a pseudonym, had a great blog. There were a lot of people who were doing this. It was very much, why do you guys have a podcast? It's kind of a very similar thing. It was a great way to communicate and reach out and connect with people in your neighborhood, in the city, and talk about what was going on. And for 6 years, I wrote a lot about what was going on. It was a dynamic time. We were talking about what we should do with downtown Columbia. I think we went through at least 3 plans at that time, and what were the pluses and minuses, how the elections got covered. I think we changed a lot of how things went in the city with those blogs, and that was a great time to just be out there doing it. And I'll tell you what, the other fun thing about it was an evolving technology. That when they actually opened Blogger up, where you could actually upload a picture from your own hard drive onto the blog, it was like, that's amazing. Kids these days, they're like, I could put an entire album up in 10 seconds or something, but it was a huge deal back then. Why I stopped writing the blog was mostly because I had lost my voice for the most part, as far as I had written myself out. It was hard to find things if anybody has the time and the dangerous wherewithal to go back and read some of those. They are very long. They are detailed. So it took a lot of effort to put them in. And lastly, I had written the blog. I had gotten onto the Wilde Lake Village board, and I had done a fairly good job. I did not want to make my blog part of my actual volunteering. I wanted to write about issues going on, but I wanted to keep that separate from what I was doing on the village board. Some things crept in, but I wanted to keep that separate. When I was appointed to the Howard County Planning Board, I felt a blog that was mostly about land use would not be a great idea for somebody who was making decisions on the planning board. So I kind of got out of the game there, and I do miss it. I will tell you that. But it was a lot of fun while I did it. So thanks for mentioning it and keeping the Columbia Compass flame alive there.
Well, it was fun reading and very informative. So thank you for that.
Yeah, thanks.
Indeed, it was, is, and always shall be, Bill. And so a couple more questions I have. We have about 10 minutes left. And there's only one question I'm going to ask you about this topic, and one question only, and that's the Rouse Project, who is to educate folks outside of Columbia, is an organization which is headed, or I should say, led, has a board of a group of individuals who have community ties deep in within Columbia and Howard County, and also some commercial ties, and have been very involved in this year's Columbia Council elections, including one of the two candidates opposing you in the election in Wilde Lake. What do you think that the Rouse Project represents, and do you feel that this is a change in Columbia politics, which is very unlike electoral politics for public office in many respects? Do you think that this represents a permanent change, or a passing fancy?
Good. I got to do a little housekeeping with you here, Bill, just really quick. First, I want to state upfront, I really don't have any beef with any of the people running for office that are being supported by the Rouse Project. I've known Tina, who's running against me, for like 12 years. So I don't have a problem with her. And I don't want anybody to think that I'm criticizing any individual person that's running for office. No. They all put their name in the hat and put their hat in the ring. So, but over top of that is this Rouse Project. And a couple of things that when I first heard about the Rouse Project, I heard about them in late February. That's when they put out a mailer and a couple other things. And when I got the mailer, I thought, well, this sounds pretty Columbia. There's a lot of things that they're raising that are important issues as far as representation, equality, swimming pools, funding choices. It seemed like a pretty good start, and I was pretty impressed. But where they've gone since then has me very concerned. It seems like there's a lot of money behind this organization. I will tell you, 1 hour ago, just about a half an hour before we got online here, I got a phone bank call from the Rouse Project, and they asked me to vote for Tina Horn. So they have phone banks, they've been doing mailers, they've been putting up signs. I don't know what else they're doing. I am fairly certain that they are now making this election this year the most expensive homeowners association election in the history of Maryland. I could be wrong about that. I don't have all the numbers, but it's got to be right up there. This is an awful lot of money put into this project. If they're going to be around for a while, I think that's really up to them. And I think the hardest day for this corporation, the Rouse Project Corporation, will be April 26th, which is the Monday after Election Day. And they're going to have to decide, are they going to actually put the money and the institution and the effort into actually creating a diverse board, a diverse offering from the Columbia Association, and work year after year on this? Or was this a sprint from their formation to Election Day? And we'll all have to see what happens on the 26th. So there's a few things that concern me with the project themselves. It seems that there's not a lot of transparency, although they call for transparency with the Columbia Association. There's not a lot of transparency that I've seen so far. In that when we had a candidates night, it was asked, is the Rouse Project providing any money to any of the candidates? And the candidate in Wilde Lake said, yes, I'm getting support from the Rouse Project, but I'm not going to tell you how much money is involved. So there's a transparency concern there. It seems like when questions are asked of the Rouse Project, the pushback is pretty sharp. I had asked questions about whether the things they were doing were right or ethical. And I was attacked personally. I can take that. That's not a huge deal. But I was like, wow, that was a pretty, quick and swift turn back towards me on this for asking questions of an organization where we don't have any rules and regulations. This is a private election. So none of the public election regulations apply. But there exists an entire body of election regulations because a lot of people in past public elections did a lot of crazy things. And there's no way to verify anything going on here. But all in all, the Rouse Project, what I see is they have lofty, pretty good goals. The question is, how are they going about those goals? And is the path that they're taking people down worth doing that to reach those goals? In the end, if this is successful, we will not be able to have elections like we traditionally have in Colombia. If you wanted to run for a village board or CA board position in Colombia, you used to have two things. One was you had to care about your neighbors in your neighborhood, and that was fundamental. And once you passed that bar, you had to have a nice, comfortable pair of shoes so you could go walk around and talk to your neighbors and get them to vote for you. That's what I've done. I've knocked on probably 300 doors in the past month. And that's how traditionally elections have been done in Colombia. If this happens and they become successful, even for all the good goals that they have, and even if they accomplish all those goals, forevermore, for what we will see here is that folks who want to actually run for the CA board will have to entertain an audience with some backers that will be able to get you a phone bank and yard signs and mailers and door hangers so that you can effectively run an election. You won't be able to walk around door to door any longer. And I think that's a huge change than how we've done it in the past. Now, the fundamental question there is, have we gotten good results in the past from people who ran for the board? I think it's a mixed bag. There have been some winners, there have been some losers, for sure. But there's no guarantee that we get all winners doing it with this new process. And there's lots more money involved, which we need to be concerned about. So I hope that answers your question, Bill.
It does. It does. Thank you for that. And then last question for me, and then to Jason to wrap it up. We mentioned 2011 and those halcyon days when bloggers were running rampant through the blogiverse, and charrettes were the order of the day. And so, of course, there is not much more that our elders enjoy more than to talk about the Jim Rouse vision. And as Columbia nears its 54th birthday on June 1st, I'm going to ask this question in a snarky manner. I just kind of intend to snark. Would Jim Rouse look upon his creation and he would think it was good? What are your thoughts?
Ooh, wow. Let's get in the mind of Jim Rouse 54 years into this experiment that we have here in Colombia. I really don't think that there are much better people to ask that question than me. I'll give you what I think, though. I think that Jim Rouse would have to take a look at a lot of things that have been going on in Colombia. And I think he would be proud of it being a success. I think that it's done fairly well. There are some things. Famously, he's in a PBS video, and he says people would never order things to be delivered directly to their house, and that's completely what we do now. He would have to calibrate for those kind of things as far as changes are concerned. Here's what I think is that if Jim Rouse were to visit an elementary school today in Colombia, if he were to go to Stevens Forest Elementary or Bryant Woods Elementary or Running Brook Elementary, I think he would be proud of those kids, and I think he'd be proud of how they're working together. When he started this whole experiment, integrated school in Colombia, because I was one of those kids, was about 10% of the class was African American, and people celebrated that as a success. We're probably majority minority in most of the, if not all of the elementary schools here in Columbia. And I think most people are very proud of that. I think most people who live in the neighborhoods that I live in run towards that kind of diversity, and they are really, really thrilled with that whole idea. So I think Jim Rouse would be happy if he visited there. I think that if he were to look at how the land has progressed, I think he would largely be okay with it. I would really like to pick his brain and see what he thought about the corner of Broken Land Parkway and Little Patuxent Parkway, because that goes back, for those who are outside Columbia, it's in downtown, and it was at one time an unmanaged, just feral land that existed for 50 years. There's an 11-story building on that corner right now. I would like to know what he thought of that. And I think that would be very illustrative of what he thought was successful or not. I think he would be very proud of how things have been managed thus far, given all of I think he learned a lot in the 70s when we had the energy crisis back in 72, and then again in the Carter administration. And given the bookends we have here with the financial collapse and the pandemic, I think he would be pretty proud of how we've marshaled on. I think he would be thrilled that we got the #1 place to live in 2016. So those are little things. I think if he walked around the neighborhoods, he would really, because this is what I find with a lot of folks, when they go downtown and they see an 11-story building on a corner that used to have just trees on it, they get very upset. And I understand that. And that's an important discussion to have. But I think that if Jim Rouse came back today, he would not really spend a lot of time in downtown. He would spend time walking Faulkner Ridge Circle. And he would say, yeah, you're right, Bill, that road looks like crap. But, these houses still look great, and they still got kids in them. And people are using the playgrounds, and they're walking at night, and they're meeting their neighbors. And he would be really thrilled with that. So that's what I think. If you got him out in the neighborhoods and talking to people, I think he'd be just absolutely pleased. Some of the bigger items may have some advice for us, and I think it'd be advice well taken.
Thank you, Bill. Jason?
Yeah.
Bring it home, sir.
Yeah. Well, there you have it. One candidate in favor of reanimating Jim Rouse, making news today. But
who's going to pay for it?
All right, two quick questions. The CA board has selected a new president. Do you have any thoughts on the qualifications, the resume of the new CA president?
Just rough stuff. Let me say better word choice. Let's try and do that better, Bill. Just broadly, I've read the press release that the Columbia Association has put out. Whether or not I'm elected to the CA board, I look forward to meeting Lakey, I believe her name is, and I think it's good that they brought in somebody who has a planning background. That's kind of a requirement, and given the planning review we're going to undergo here for Newtown zoning in the near future, that'll be a benefit. I think that we'll have to see. I think her resume is very strong, and it's well suited for Columbia, but it's going to be in the doing. We've got a short honeymoon period here. We're certainly in not the best situation, as most companies are not, and we'll see what our next steps are. But I see a lot of good in her coming to Columbia.
And this question, I feel a bit odd asking the question just because we are talking about the CA, Columbia Association, not exactly, known for engaging in high politique, but nonetheless, here we are. So if you had to distill it down to a simple elevator pitch, and someone were to approach you and I said, Bill Santos, what's your deal? What would you say to that person?
Give me a perspective. What's my deal on being a Washington Wizards fan?
You want to be on the CA board. What's that all about? Why this job? Why you? Why now?
Oh, well, the reason is that I have some of the best experiences. My experience, my knowledge, my abilities, my accomplishments in the past all point to being an effective member of the CA board. I have the shortest learning curve of any of the candidates in Wilde Lake as far as getting acclimated to the policies, practices that the Columbia Association operates within. I am not an insider, but having worked with the Columbia Association for so long, I have a pretty good idea of how things work. Let's see. It's a matter of who's going to bring an experience and start getting things done. Because, like I said, we have so much potential and we have so much that we need to get through in order to start being a positive change. That I think that I can help make that happen.
Right. Fair enough. All right, Bill.
Yeah. Bill, you almost made it the whole way without mentioning the Wizards. I heard that. I heard that nonsense. That
yeah,
78, what was 77, 78 trophy stands proudly at whatever they call the arena now.
You know that they did.
You only have 16 to go to catch my team.
They did beat the Utah Jazz last night. So small little wins.
Take the small wins. So I will say I am surprised that the fifth wheel Bradley Beal is now leading the league in scoring. He was a tomato can for so many years.
He's a real talent. It's good to see some amazing basketball being played by the Washington team for sure.
We shall see. So Bill, last thing I'll ask. I lied. If anybody wants to support your campaign, how can they do that?
Well, if anybody in Wilde Lake wants to support my campaign, you have received a ballot in the mail. I would like you to check the box next to my name and either mail it in, put it in a local drop box, or vote online. That would be the greatest thing in the world. If you're looking to if you have some advice, there you go.
Yeah.
Jason's got the ballot.
There you go. So if you're in Wilde Lake, please fill that out. I would certainly appreciate that. If you're outside Wilde Lake and you think that my candidacy is something that you'd like to back, you can reach out to me via Facebook. My Twitter handle is Columbia Compass, @Columbia Compass, or my email, columbiacompass@outlook.com. Folks can go ahead and just contact me and we can talk next steps, because this has been an interesting election season. We have just a couple of, just under 2 weeks to go. But we've got to fight every day. If they're phone banking, we're going to have to do something else to keep interest and keep those ballots moving in. So thank you. Thanks for asking.
Sure, and if I understand correctly, I should say, there's actually going to be in-person voting on the 24th in Wilde Lake, correct?
Yes. The Wilde Lake Community Association will also have an election day. We will have in-person voting on April 24th. If your ballot has not been put in the mail or in a drop box, you can show up on the 24th of April at Slayton House in the Wilde Lake Village Center. The voting window is from 10 a.m. to 12 p.m., a very short window. So plan accordingly if you intend to vote on voting day.
Well, Bill, thank you for being a terrific guest on our fine podcast production, the first one with the microphone. And good luck to you in your race, and whatever happens, I certainly hope you will consider coming back and joining us again.
I think this is great. It would be great to come back and chat with you guys. This is really nice. Thank you very much.
Our pleasure. Jason, anything in closing, sir?
No, I have no closing thoughts as of this moment.
Well, right. Your moments are running short, so your closing, they may have to wait until opening thoughts the next time.
Oh, that works.
Okay. and as of next time, we have 2 big podcast productions coming up over the next several days. So on Friday, the 16th, one of Bill's competitors for the Wilde Lake CA board seat, Tina Horn, will be joining us. And then on Sunday, the 18th, we will have Mary Turos from the new anti-Andy Harris PAC, Decency for the First, as in decency for the first congressional district. So join us then, and feel free to like our YouTube channel, which is Forward Maryland. Easy enough. For Jason Booms, my name is Bill Woodcock. You have been watching or listening to another edition of Forward Maryland. Have a great day, everybody. Take care.
Thanks.
Thank you.